Tom Miller stood at the bus stop, his duffel bag at his feet and his hand resting gently on his nephew's shoulder. 8-year-old Alex stared at the ground, scuffing his worn sneakers against the cracked sidewalk. The mid-September breeze carried the first hint of autumn, and Tom pulled his jacket tighter, suddenly aware of how thin it had become after years of use. "Is it far, Uncle Tom?" Alex asked, looking up with those solemn brown eyes that had barely shown any spark since his mother's funeral 6 weeks ago. "The lawyer said it's at the end of Maple Street," Tom replied, checking the wrinkled paper in his pocket for the 100th time. "We should be there before dinner." Tom's leg ached, a constant reminder of the roadside bomb that had ended his military career after 12 years of service. 3 surgeries and countless physical therapy sessions had saved the leg, but left him with a limp that worsened in cold weather. At 34, he had imagined a different homecoming, not burying his only sister and becoming the guardian of her quiet, grief-stricken son. The bus pulled up with a hiss of brakes. They climbed aboard, Tom wincing slightly as he hefted their bags. The driver, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes, smiled at Alex. "Where to, sweetie?" "Millfield Town Center, please," Tom answered, counting out the fare from his dwindling cash. The inheritance couldn't have come at a better time. His savings wouldn't have lasted another month. The letter had arrived 3 days ago, creased and forwarded twice before finding them at the cheap motel they'd been staying in. Tom's great-uncle Harold, a man he'd met exactly once at a family reunion 20 years ago, had left them his house in Millfield. The property taxes would be covered by a small trust for 5 years. Enough time, hopefully, for Tom to find work and get back on his feet. The bus rumbled along the highway, passing cornfields and small farms before turning onto a narrower road, lined with increasingly dense trees. Alex pressed his face against the window, momentarily distracted from his grief by the changing landscape. "Is it a big house?" he asked. Tom tried to remember what the lawyer had said. "Pretty big, I think." "It's old, though. Probably needs some work. Will I have my own room?" Tom smiled, ruffling the boy's hair. "I bet you will. Maybe even 2 if you want." As the bus entered Millfield, Tom noticed how the town seemed frozen in time. Brick storefronts with hand-painted signs, a small park with a gazebo, and streets lined with maple trees just beginning to turn golden. It might have been charming under different circumstances. The bus stopped at the town square and they stepped off with their bags. A few locals glanced their way with undisguised curiosity. Tom approached an older man sweeping the sidewalk in front of a hardware store. "Excuse me, sir. Could you point us toward Maple Street?" The man leaned on his broom, eyes narrowing. "Maple's that way, 3 blocks down." He paused, looking them over. "You must be the ones taking over the old Harrington place." Tom nodded. "That's right. I'm Harold Harrington's great-nephew." The man's expression shifted subtly. "That's so? Well, good luck to you." Something in his tone suggested they'd need it. They walked in silence, Tom trying to ignore the twinge in his leg. Alex stayed close, clutching the stuffed dinosaur that had become his constant companion since his mother's death. As they turned onto Maple Street, the houses grew larger and farther apart, many with wraparound porches and detailed woodwork, though several showed signs of neglect. At the very end of the street stood their destination. Tom stopped, staring up at the 3-story Victorian mansion set back from the road behind a rusted iron fence. Even from the sidewalk, he could see missing roof shingles, peeling paint, and windows clouded with decades of grime. "Is that it?" Alex whispered, eyes wide. "That's it," Tom confirmed, trying to keep the shock from his voice. The lawyer had called it a historic property requiring some updating. This was far beyond some updating. It looked one strong wind away from collapsing. As they pushed open the creaking gate, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. A man in an expensive suit stepped out, his smile as polished as his shoes. "Mr. Miller, I'm William Parker from Millfield Realty." He extended a manicured hand, which Tom shook automatically. "I heard you'd be arriving today and thought I'd welcome you to our little town." "Thanks," Tom said cautiously. Parker glanced at the mansion, then back at Tom. "I understand you've inherited this property. I won't beat around the bush. My company has been interested in this lot for some time. The house, as you can see, is beyond reasonable repair. I'd be willing to make you a very fair offer, save you the trouble of dealing with this." He gestured vaguely at the crumbling structure. "We just got here," Tom said. "I haven't even seen inside yet." Of course. Parker handed him a business card. Just keep in mind winter comes early in these parts. That roof won't hold up to heavy snow. And heating a place this size will cost a fortune. For someone in your... He glanced at Tom's limp situation. It might be more practical to consider other options. A woman pushing a stroller slowed as she passed, openly staring. You're not actually planning to live there, are you? She called out, not bothering to lower her voice. That place hasn't been fit for people in 20 years. Tom felt Alex press against his side. Thank you for your concern, he said stiffly. We'll be fine, Parker smiled thinly. My offer stands. Think about it. You could buy a nice modern home in a better neighborhood and still have money left over. He turned toward his car, then paused. Oh, and the local school is on Pine Street. Though most new folks send their kids to private school in the next town over. Our elementary has seen better days. After Parker drove away, Tom and Alex approached the front porch, steps groaning beneath their weight. The key stuck in the lock, requiring Tom's shoulder against the door before it finally swung open with a mournful creak. The smell hit them first, dust, mildew, and the musty scent of long abandonment. The entry hall stretched before them, grand despite the cobwebs and water stains. A wide staircase curved up to the second floor and doorways opened to rooms on either side. It's huge, Alex whispered, his voice echoing slightly. Tom set down their bags and tried the light switch. Nothing happened. Power's off. We'll have to call about that tomorrow. They explored the first floor in the fading afternoon light, a formal dining room with a crystal chandelier hanging precariously from the ceiling, a library with empty shelves, a kitchen with ancient appliances. Every room held furniture draped in yellowed sheets like forgotten ghosts. Can we look upstairs? Alex asked, some life returning to his voice. The upper floors revealed more of the same. Spacious bedrooms with peeling wallpaper, bathrooms with clawfoot tubs and rust-stained sinks, and countless smaller rooms whose purposes had been lost to time. Alex claimed a corner bedroom with bay windows overlooking what had once been a garden. Can this be my room, Uncle Tom? Sure, buddy. We'll clean it up and make it nice. As the daylight faded, they returned downstairs. Tom found some candles in a kitchen drawer and lit them, casting long shadows across the walls. They sat on the floor of what had once been a sitting room, eating sandwiches they'd brought from their last stop. Those people don't like us, Alex said suddenly. Tom considered lying, then thought better of it. They don't know us yet. And this house, it's been empty a long time. People get ideas about empty old houses. Like ghost stories, something like that. Later, they spread their sleeping bags on the dusty floor of the master bedroom, the only room Tom had managed to sweep clear of the worst debris. Through the window, they could see lights from the other houses on Maple Street, warm and inviting in the distance. Uncle Tom? Alex's voice was small in the darkness. Yeah, buddy? What if Mr. Parker is right? What if we can't fix this place? Tom stared at the ceiling, where water stains spread like dark continents across a faded map. His military pension wouldn't stretch far, and jobs for veterans with physical limitations weren't exactly plentiful. Parker's offer was tempting, a quick solution to their problems. But then he thought about the alternatives. A small apartment somewhere, both of them starting over again as strangers. At least here they had space. A chance to build something. We're not giving up that easy, he said finally. Your mom never gave up when things got tough, and neither will we. This is our home now. We'll make it work. Alex was quiet for so long that Tom thought he'd fallen asleep. I miss her, he finally whispered. I know, I miss her too. Tom reached out in the darkness, finding Alex's hand. But we've got each other now. And we've got this big old house. Tomorrow we'll start cleaning up. Make a list of what needs fixing first. The people in town will still laugh at us. Let them laugh. We know something they don't. What's that? Tom smiled in the darkness. We're tougher than we look. As Alex's breathing finally deepened into sleep, Tom lay awake, listening to the strange creaks and groans of the old house settling. Despite the dust and decay, despite the mockery they'd already faced and would surely face again, for the first time since returning home with injuries that ended his career, he felt something like purpose stirring inside him. They had a long road ahead, but at least now they had a destination. And maybe, just maybe, this broken-down old mansion needed them as much as they needed it. Tom woke to sunlight streaming through dusty windows and the sound of Alex sneezing. The boy sat up in his sleeping bag, rubbing his eyes and looking around as if surprised to find himself in the dilapidated master bedroom. "Morning, buddy," Tom said, wincing as he stretched his stiff leg. Sleeping on the hard floor hadn't done him any favors. "Ready for our first real day in our new home?" Alex sneezed again in response. After a breakfast of granola bars and bottled water, they ventured into town. The Millfield hardware store stood on Main Street, its windows cluttered with tools and seasonal decorations. A bell jingled as they entered, and the man behind the counter looked up from his newspaper. "Help you?" he asked, his gaze lingering on Tom's limp. "We need some basics," Tom replied. "Cleaning supplies, light bulbs, maybe a few tools." The man, Pete, according to his name tag, set down his paper. "You're the ones who moved into the old Harrington place." It wasn't a question, but Tom nodded anyway. "That's right." Pete gave a low whistle. "Bold move. That place has been empty since old Harold went to the nursing home, 8 years ago? Died there too, didn't he?" "He was my great-uncle," Tom said. "That so?" Pete studied them. "No offense, but you don't look like you've got the money to fix that place up." "Parker offered good money for it, from what I heard." Tom felt his jaw tighten. "We're not selling." Pete shrugged. "Your funeral. Aisle 3 for cleaning stuff." He turned back to his newspaper, effectively dismissing them. As they gathered supplies, Tom tried to calculate costs in his head. Even the basics were adding up quickly. Alex followed silently, holding a broom that seemed too large for his small frame. At the checkout, Pete rang them up slowly. "That'll be $97.34. Tom blinked at the total. The same supplies would have cost $60 at most back home. But he handed over his credit card without comment, not wanting to make a scene in front of Alex. "Power company's over on Elm," Pete said as he bagged their purchases. "Water office is next door to them. Better get those turned on before night falls again. Gets mighty dark out there at the end of Maple." They spent the rest of the morning at the utility offices, filling out paperwork and paying deposits that further drained Tom's limited funds. By afternoon, they returned to the mansion, where a utility worker was already connecting their electricity. "Got the power on for you," the worker said, closing his toolbox. "But I gotta tell you, this wiring's ancient. Probably not up to code. You'll want to get that checked before winter." "Thanks," Tom said, adding electrical inspection to his mental list of expenses. Inside, they began the overwhelming task of cleaning. They started with Alex's chosen bedroom, stripping yellowed sheets from the old bed and sweeping decades of dust from the floor. Tom found a rusty stepladder in a closet and used it to wipe cobwebs from the ceiling corners, while Alex scrubbed at the grime on the windows. "Uncle Tom?" Alex asked, pausing in his work. "Why does everyone want us to leave?" Tom stopped, ladder creaking beneath him. "I don't think they want us to leave exactly. They just don't understand why we'd want to stay in an old house that needs so much work. But it's our house now." "That's right. And we're going to make it great again." By evening, Alex's room was clean enough to set up his bed properly. Tom hung a sheet over the window as a temporary curtain and unpacked Alex's few belongings. Some clothes, books, and the dinosaur collection his mother had helped him start. "What do you think?" Tom asked, standing back to survey their work. Alex looked around, a small smile forming. "It's better, but still kind of scary when it gets dark. We'll get some proper lights tomorrow. For tonight, how about we camp out in here together?" The next morning brought a new challenge. Alex's first day at Millfield Elementary. They walked together, Tom trying to ignore the whispers from parents dropping off their children. "That's them," he heard one mother murmur to another, "living in that death trap at the end of Maple." The school secretary pursed her lips when Tom mentioned their address. "I'll need to update our emergency contact information," she said. "Does that place even have a working phone yet?" "We have cell phones," Tom replied stiffly. "Well, cell service is spotty out there." She handed him a stack of forms. "We'll need all these filled out. And proof of residence, of course. The house is still in my great-uncle's name. We just moved in." She raised an eyebrow. "Then we'll need the deed showing transfer of ownership." Tom felt his patience wearing thin. "I have the lawyer's letter. School policy, I'm afraid. Can't officially enroll without proper documentation." A woman stepped out of an office behind the secretary's desk. "I can take it from here, Nancy." She smiled warmly at Tom and Alex. "I'm Lynn Baker, third-grade teacher. You must be Alex." Alex nodded, half hiding behind Tom's leg. Why don't you come with me and we'll get you settled while your uncle sorts out the paperwork? She knelt to Alex's level. I saved you a desk by the window, and we're starting a unit on dinosaurs today. Alex perked up slightly at that, allowing Ms. Baker to lead him toward the classroom after a quick hug from Tom. I'll handle the temporary enrollment, Ms. Baker told Tom over her shoulder. Just bring in the documentation when you have it. Tom spent the rest of the day tackling the kitchen, scrubbing ancient appliances and clearing out cabinets filled with mouse droppings and expired food. He found a leaking pipe under the sink and cobbled together a temporary fix with supplies from his earlier hardware store run. Around 3 o'clock, he walked back to the school to pick up Alex, anxious to hear how his first day had gone. He found the boy sitting alone on a bench outside the building, shoulders hunched. Hey, buddy. How was school? Alex shrugged, not meeting his eyes. That good, huh? Want to talk about it? The kids called me mansion boys, Alex said quietly. They said our house is haunted and that we're probably ghosts, too. Tom sighed, sitting beside him on the bench. Kids can be mean sometimes. Billy Foster said his dad says we're crazy for living there, and that you're just a broken soldier who can't get a real job. Tom felt heat rise in his face but kept his voice steady. Well, Billy Foster's dad doesn't know anything about us. Ms. Baker was nice, though, Alex added. She told them to stop and she knows a lot about dinosaurs. See? Not everyone in this town is against us. On their walk home, they passed the local grocery store. Let's get some real food, Tom suggested, hoping to cheer Alex up. Inside, they filled a small cart with essentials. At the checkout, the cashier, a teenager with braces, stared openly at them. You're the ones in the haunted house, she said, scanning their items. My brother dared me to go in there once. I swear I heard moaning coming from inside. It's not haunted, Alex said firmly. It's just old, the girl shrugged. Whatever. That'll be 4327. As they left, Tom noticed William Parker watching them from across the street. The realtor lifted a hand in greeting before pointedly looking at his watch and then up at the sky, where dark clouds were gathering. Looks like rain, Tom muttered. We better hurry. They were halfway up Maple Street when the downpour began, soaking them both before they could reach the house. Inside, Tom quickly discovered that the roof leaked in at least 7 places. He grabbed every pot and bucket he could find, positioning them under the worst drips. Uncle Tom, Alex called from the upstairs hallway. There's water coming through the ceiling up here, too. By nightfall, the storm had passed, but their spirits were dampened. They sat in the kitchen eating sandwiches by the light of a single bulb, the steady drip of water into containers creating a dismal percussion. Maybe we should sell, Tom said softly, more to himself than to Alex. No, Alex looked up sharply. Mom always said Millers don't give up when things get hard. Tom smiled sadly. She did say that, didn't she? And this is our house now. We just need to fix the roof. Fixing the roof costs money, buddy. Money we don't have a lot of right now. Alex was quiet for a moment. What if we find treasure in the house? Like in the movies? Tom chuckled. I don't think Great Uncle Harold was the treasure-hiding type. But we haven't looked everywhere yet. There might be secret rooms or something. Tell you what, Tom said, ruffling Alex's hair. Tomorrow after school, we'll explore every corner of this place. Deal? Deal! Later, as Tom tucked Alex into bed, the boy asked, Are you going to get a job here? I'm trying, buddy. I put in applications at a few places in town today. Will they hire you? Because of your leg? Tom sighed. They're supposed to. There are laws about that, but small towns sometimes work differently. After Alex fell asleep, Tom sat on the edge of his own bed, staring at the water stain spreading across the ceiling. His phone showed 3 missed calls from Parker Realty. The offer was tempting. Money to start over somewhere else, somewhere they might be welcome. But then he thought of Jenny, his sister, who had raised Alex alone after her husband left. She'd never taken the easy way out of anything, and now he was all Alex had. We're staying, he whispered to the empty room. Somehow we're making this work. A sudden crash from downstairs jolted him to his feet. Heart pounding, he grabbed the baseball bat he'd found in a closet and limped toward the staircase, wondering what new disaster awaited them in the old mansion that nobody wanted them to call home. Tom gripped the baseball bat tighter as he made his way down the creaking staircase. The house was mostly dark, with only the kitchen lights spilling into the hallway. His bad leg protested with each step, but years of military training kept him moving forward, senses alert. Hello? He called out. trying to sound authoritative despite his racing heart. "If someone's in here, you should know I'm armed." Silence answered him. He reached the bottom of the stairs and paused, listening. The sound had come from somewhere near the front of the house. Keeping his back to the wall, he edged toward the entryway. The front door was still locked. Good. He moved carefully into the sitting room, where moonlight filtered through the dusty windows. Nothing seemed disturbed until his foot knocked against something on the floor. Tom fumbled for the light switch. The overhead fixture flickered to life, revealing the source of the crash. A large painting had fallen from the wall, its ornate frame cracked on impact. He lowered the bat, feeling a mix of relief and embarrassment. Just an old painting, probably loosened by all the recent cleaning and movement in the house. As he bent to pick it up, he noticed something odd about the wall behind where the painting had hung. Unlike the faded wallpaper surrounding it, this section was newer with a slightly different pattern. Tom ran his fingers along the edge where the patterns met. "Uncle Tom," Alex's small voice called from the top of the stairs.
"What was that noise?"
"Just a painting that fell," Tom replied, still examining the wall. "Go back to bed, buddy. Everything's fine." But Alex was already padding down the stairs in his dinosaur pajamas, curiosity stronger than fear. "What are you looking at?" Tom pointed to the wall.
"See how the wallpaper's different here?"
Like something was covered up. Alex peered at it, then knocked on the wall with his small fist. The sound was hollow, different from the solid thud of the surrounding wall. "There's something behind there," Alex whispered, eyes wide with excitement. Tom knocked too, moving his hand across the section. "I think you're right." He retrieved a flashlight and examined the edges more carefully. There was a thin seam running along the sides and top of the rectangular section, barely visible beneath layers of wallpaper and paint. "Is it a door?" Alex asked. "Maybe." Tom pressed against different spots until he felt something give slightly under his fingers. "Stand back a bit, okay?" He pushed harder on that spot, and with a groan of long unused hinges, a section of the wall swung inward. Stale air rushed out, carrying the scent of dust and forgotten spaces. Tom shone his flashlight into the darkness, revealing a narrow staircase descending steeply below the house. "A secret basement," Alex breathed, bouncing on his toes. "I told you there might be secret rooms." "Hold on," Tom cautioned, putting a hand on Alex's shoulder. "Let me check it out first." "No way." "I'm coming too," Alex protested, already trying to squeeze past him. Tom sighed, knowing there was no way he'd get the boy back to bed now. "Fine, but stay behind me, and if I say run, you run, got it?" Alex nodded solemnly. The stairs creaked ominously under their weight. Tom counted 17 steps before they reached the bottom. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing a space much larger than he'd expected, easily the size of the entire first floor of the house. "Whoa," Alex whispered, pressing against Tom's side. The beam illuminated shapes covered in drop cloths, shelves lining the walls, and what looked like workbenches. The air was thick with dust, but surprisingly dry for a basement. "Wait here," Tom said, setting Alex on the bottom step before moving cautiously to the nearest wall. He felt along it until his fingers found what he was looking for, a light switch. When he flipped it, nothing happened. "Probably not connected to the house's power," he muttered. "We'll need to come back tomorrow with more flashlights." "But Uncle Tom," Alex whined. "We're already here. Let's look around a little." Tom hesitated, then nodded. "Just a quick look. Stay close." They moved deeper into the basement, Tom's flashlight illuminating their path. He pulled back one of the drop cloths, revealing an old workbench covered with tools, many of which he didn't recognize. Another cloth covered what appeared to be an ancient printing press. A third hid rows of glass bottles containing powders and liquids, their labels faded with age. "It's like a mad scientist's lab," Alex said, his voice filled with wonder. "It's definitely a workshop of some kind," Tom agreed, running his fingers over the dusty tools. The beam of his flashlight caught something in the center of the room, a large object covered by the biggest drop cloth yet. Curious, Tom approached it and carefully pulled the cloth away. What it revealed left them both speechless. It was a complex mechanical device, about the size of a small car with gears, levers, and brass fittings all arranged around a central cylinder. Despite decades of neglect, it gleamed dully in the flashlight beam, as if someone had crafted it from materials designed to resist tarnish and rust. "What is it?" Alex asked, reaching out to touch a brass handle. I'm not sure, Tom admitted, but it looks important and expensive. As they examined the machine more closely, Tom noticed an engraved plate on its side. He wiped away the dust with his sleeve and shone the light on the inscription. The Harrington Atmospheric Electricity Generator, he read aloud. Patent pending 1897, this thing is over 100 years old. Did Great-Uncle Harold make this? Alex asked. I don't think so. The date's too old. Must have been one of his ancestors. Tom's flashlight beam caught a desk in the corner, piled high with papers and leather-bound books. Let's check over there. The desk was a treasure trove of information, journals filled with handwritten notes and diagrams, blueprints for devices that looked decades ahead of their time, letters from scientific societies and patent offices, some accepting submissions, others rejecting them as too fanciful or impossible according to known scientific principles. Tom opened one of the journals, dated 1896-1897. The handwriting was precise, the language formal but clear. Today I have achieved what Edison and Tesla have only theorized, he read. My generator successfully draws electricity directly from the atmosphere without need of fuel or external power source. What does that mean? Alex asked, struggling to follow. If this is real, Tom said slowly, it means someone in the Harrington family invented a way to generate free electricity over 100 years ago. Then why isn't it famous? Good question. Tom flipped through more pages, scanning the entries. It looks like he couldn't get anyone to believe him. The scientific community thought he was a crackpot. And then he paused, reading more carefully. Then there was a fire in his workshop in Philadelphia. He was discredited, called a fraud. That's when he moved here and built this house, with this secret workshop where he could continue his work without interference. A sudden thought struck Tom. He turned to Alex with widening eyes. Do you realize what this might be worth? Not just the machine, but the patents, the ideas in these journals? Alex grinned. Enough to fix the roof? Tom laughed, ruffling the boy's hair. Enough to fix 100 roofs, probably. They spent another hour exploring the basement workshop, finding more inventions in various stages of completion, more journals documenting experiments and ideas. Tom's mind raced with possibilities. If even half of what he was reading was legitimate, they were sitting on a gold mine of historical and scientific significance. Finally, noticing Alex trying to hide his yawns, Tom decided it was time to head back upstairs. We'll come back tomorrow with better lights, he promised, and we'll start going through everything properly. Can we try to make the electricity thing work? Alex asked as they climbed the stairs. Maybe. But first we need to make sure it's safe. Tom secured the hidden door behind them, making sure it wouldn't swing shut completely. And we should probably keep this our secret for now until we know exactly what we found. Because of Mr. Parker? Tom nodded. He wanted this place pretty badly. I'm starting to think maybe he knew something was hidden here. As they climbed back up to the second floor, the house somehow felt different, less like an overwhelming burden and more like a treasure box waiting to be fully opened. For the first time since arriving in Millfield, Tom fell asleep without worrying about money or the leaking roof or what the townspeople thought of them. The next morning, Tom dropped Alex at school with a whispered reminder not to tell anyone about their discovery. The boy nodded seriously, though his excitement was barely contained. As Tom limped back toward the house, he noticed William Parker watching him from across the street. The realtor raised a hand in greeting, then crossed toward him. Good morning, Mr. Miller. Have you given any more thought to my offer? Tom smiled, a new confidence in his voice. Actually, Mr. Parker, I have. And I'm afraid the house is definitely not for sale. In fact, I think we're going to be very happy here in Millfield. The look of surprise and frustration that flashed across Parker's face told Tom all he needed to know. Whatever was in that basement, it was valuable enough that someone else wanted it badly, and now it belonged to him and Alex. Little did he know that their discovery was about to turn the entire town of Millfield upside down. The news spread through Millfield like wildfire. By the time Tom picked Alex up from school that afternoon, the whispers had already begun. Ms. Baker met them at the classroom door, her expression curious. Alex did a very interesting show and tell today, she said, giving Tom a meaningful look. He told the class about a secret basement and an electricity machine. Tom's heart sank. He glanced down at Alex, who suddenly seemed very interested in his shoelaces. I only told Ms. Baker, Alex mumbled. And maybe Donnie and Pete at lunch. They said I was making it up. Ms. Baker smiled. The whole third grade is now convinced you have a mad scientist lab under your house. I thought you might want to know. Thanks, Tom sighed. So much for keeping their discovery secret. As they walked home, Tom couldn't be angry with Alex. The boy had been bursting with excitement, and keeping such a discovery to himself would have been nearly impossible for an 8-year-old. I'm sorry, Alex said, kicking at a stone on the sidewalk. Are you mad? No, buddy. But we need to be careful. Remember how Mr. Parker really wants our house? If he finds out what's down there, he already knows. Tom stopped. What do you mean? He was talking to Principal Wilson when I went to the office for my permission slip. They stopped when they saw me, but I heard Mr. Parker say, the Harrington Inventions and Historical Society. Tom felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn breeze. Let's get home quick. They turned onto Maple Street and froze. 3 cars were parked in front of their house, including Parker's black sedan. A small group of people stood on their porch. Parker in animated conversation with a man in a tweed jacket. Stay behind me, Tom murmured to Alex as they approached. Parker spotted them and waved, his smile too wide to be genuine. Ah, Mr. Miller. Just the man we were hoping to see. You're trespassing on private property, Tom said evenly. My apologies for the intrusion. The man in tweed stepped forward, hand extended. I'm Dr. David Wilson from the State Historical Society. Mr. Parker contacted us about a potentially significant historical find on your property. Tom ignored the outstretched hand. Did he now? And what exactly did he tell you was here? Dr. Wilson glanced at Parker, then back to Tom. He mentioned that your house might contain important artifacts related to Henry Harrington, a little-known inventor from the turn of the century. Our society has been trying to locate his work for years. This is my property, Tom said firmly, and anything on it belongs to me and my nephew. Parker stepped closer, lowering his voice. Be reasonable, Miller. You don't have the resources to restore those artifacts properly. The Historical Society can preserve them, study them. They'll be properly credited to your family. And I suppose they'll need to remove everything to do that? It would be for the best, Dr. Wilson interjected. Our facilities are equipped for proper preservation and study. Tom noticed a woman taking photos of the house with a professional camera. Another man was peering through the front windows. Everyone off my property, now. Tom's voice took on the commanding tone he'd used as a sergeant. Or I'm calling the police. There's no need for hostility, Parker said smoothly. We're offering you a tremendous opportunity. The Historical Society would even pay you a finder's fee. How generous, Tom replied coldly. Especially since you've been trying to buy this place for weeks, knowing full well what was hidden here. Parker's smile faltered. I don't know what you're implying. I think you do. Now, for the last time, get off my property. The group reluctantly moved toward their cars, Dr. Wilson handing Tom his card before leaving. Think about it, Mr. Miller. This could be a wonderful educational opportunity. Your great-uncle's work deserves to be shared with the world. Only after the last car pulled away did Tom relax slightly. He unlocked the front door, ushering Alex inside. How did they find out so fast? Alex asked, wide-eyed. Small towns have big ears, Tom replied, checking that all the windows were secure. And I'm guessing Mr. Parker has been looking for an excuse to get inside this house for a long time. That evening, they returned to the basement with better lighting, a set of battery-powered work lamps Tom had purchased that afternoon. In the improved light, the workshop was even more impressive. Shelves of journals lined one wall, each meticulously labeled by year. Blueprints and technical drawings were organized in flat files. The central machine, the atmospheric electricity generator, dominated the room, its brass and copper components gleaming despite a century of dust. Tom examined the journals more carefully, starting with the earliest dates. He learned that Henry Harrington had been a contemporary of Tesla and Edison, but without their backing or resources. A brilliant self-taught engineer, he had developed theories about atmospheric electricity that were decades ahead of his time. Listen to this, Alex, Tom said, reading from a journal dated 1895. My colleagues mock what they cannot understand. They cling to coal and steam while the very air around us pulses with untapped energy. One day the world will see that Harrington was right. Alex was only half listening, focused on a small device he'd found on one of the workbenches. It resembled a clock, but instead of hands, it had small metal balls that rotated around a central axis. "What's this thing?" he asked, carefully turning it over in his hands. Tom looked up from the journal. "Not sure." "Put it down carefully, though. Some of this stuff might be fragile." Alex set it down and moved to examine the generator. "Can we try to make it work?" "I don't think that's a good idea until we know exactly what it does," Tom replied. "Besides, some of these components might be corroded or damaged after sitting down here for a century." They spent hours exploring the workshop, Tom taking notes on their discoveries. The more he read, the more impressed he became with Henry Harrington's genius, and the more he understood why Parker was so interested in the contents of the basement. The next morning, Tom called the lawyer who had handled his great-uncle's estate. "I need to know who has legal rights to intellectual property created by Henry Harrington," he explained. "He was my great-uncle's grandfather." "Interesting question," the lawyer mused. "Normally patents expire after 20 years. But if these inventions were never properly patented, or if the patents were denied as you mentioned, then the physical prototypes and documentation would belong to you as the property owner. The ideas themselves might be in a gray area legally. And if someone tried to take them from my property, that would be theft, plain and simple," the lawyer assured him. "I'd be happy to draft a cease and desist letter to this historical society if they're pressuring you." Tom declined for now, thanking the lawyer for his advice. He had a more immediate concern, making sure the hidden door was secure. He installed a deadbolt that afternoon, with only Alex knowing the location of the key. The next few days brought a parade of visitors. First came the local newspaper, asking for an interview about the historical discovery at the Harrington mansion. Tom politely but firmly refused. Then came more historians, museum curators, and even a representative from a major university's engineering department, all turned away at the door. Even the townspeople's attitudes had shifted. Pete at the hardware store suddenly found time to give Tom advice on vintage wiring. The grocery cashier who had gossiped about ghosts now asked earnestly if the rumors about a lightning machine were true. Ms. Baker was the only visitor Tom welcomed. She arrived Saturday afternoon with a stack of books about famous inventors and the history of electricity. "I thought Alex might find these interesting," she explained on the porch, not pushing to come inside. "And I wanted to apologize if I contributed to the gossip. I should have realized the other teachers would overhear the children talking." "It's not your fault," Tom assured her. "It would have gotten out eventually. But thanks for these." He gestured to the books. "Alex will love them." As she turned to leave, she hesitated. "Just so you know, William Parker has been asking questions around town about your family. About you specifically. Your military service, your—" she glanced at his leg. "Injury. It feels like he's looking for leverage." Tom nodded grimly. "Thanks for the warning." That night, after Alex was asleep, Tom sat at the kitchen table with the oldest of Henry Harrington's journals, reading by lamplight. A soft knock at the kitchen door startled him. He opened it cautiously to find a man in his 70s standing on the back steps. "Evening," the old man said. "Name's Frank Cooper. I was Harold's friend for 40 years. Thought it was time we had a talk." "About what?" Tom asked warily. "About William Parker and why his family has been trying to get their hands on this house for 3 generations. Frank glanced over his shoulder into the darkness. "And about why you need to be careful who you trust in this town." "Very careful indeed." Tom studied the old man standing on his back porch, then stepped aside. "Come in, Mr. Cooper." Frank Cooper walked with a slight stoop, his weathered hands revealing decades of manual labor. He settled at the kitchen table while Tom put on a pot of coffee. "Harold and I went way back," Frank began, glancing around the kitchen. "Used to help him with repairs on this old place. He never had much money for upkeep, but he was determined to keep it in the family." "Why?" Tom asked, setting 2 mugs on the table. "What's so special about this house beyond what's in the basement?" Frank's eyes sharpened. "So you found it good. Harold would be pleased. You knew about the workshop?" "Course I did. Helped Harold seal it up back in '87 when he got too old to manage the stairs. He was worried about the Parker family finding it after he was gone." Frank wrapped his gnarled fingers around the steaming mug. "The Parkers and the Harringtons have history going back to your great-great-grandfather Henry and William's great-grandfather George Parker." "What kind of history?" "They were business partners briefly. George had money, Henry had ideas. They were going to revolutionize electricity together. Frank took a sip of coffee. Then George saw the generator working and got greedy. Tried to push Henry out, claimed the invention for himself. When Henry refused, there was a mysterious fire in their Philadelphia workshop. All of Henry's public records and prototypes were destroyed. But he saved some, Tom said. Frank nodded. He fled to Millfield with what he could salvage. Built this house with special hiding places. Started over in secret. George Parker followed him here, bought up half the town thinking he could pressure Henry into selling. But Henry was stubborn. Sounds like a family trait, Tom said with a slight smile. The Parkers have been trying to get this house for 3 generations. William's just the latest. They've never known exactly what was hidden here, but they knew it was valuable. And the townspeople? Why have they been so hostile? Frank sighed. Small towns have long memories. The Parkers spread rumors about Henry being a fraud, a madman, easier to believe than admitting their own family's treachery. Over time, the house just became that creepy old place, and anyone living there was treated with suspicion. Tom processed this information, thinking of the workshop downstairs, the journals, the incredible invention that had been hidden away for over a century. What should I do? He asked finally. That's not for me to say. But I know people who might help. Real historians, engineers who'd understand what Henry created without trying to steal it. Frank pulled out a small notebook and wrote down several names and numbers. These folks have been studying Henry's published work for years. They'd give their eye teeth to see what's in your basement. After Frank left, Tom sat up late reading more of Henry's journals. Around midnight, he heard a noise outside. Peering through the window, he caught a glimpse of shadowy figures moving across the front lawn. Tom grabbed his phone and a flashlight, then quietly entered Alex's room. "Buddy, wake up," he whispered, gently shaking the boy's shoulder. "We need to go downstairs quietly." Alex rubbed his eyes. "What's happening?" "Someone's outside. Probably just kids playing pranks, but let's be safe." They crept downstairs to the kitchen. Tom called the police, reporting prowlers, then positioned Alex away from the windows. The sound of breaking glass shattered the silence. Tom's military training kicked in. He quickly turned off all lights and moved them to a corner with clear sightlines to both entrances. "When I say run, go to Ms. Baker's house," he whispered to Alex, writing down her address on a slip of paper. "Stay low, don't stop for anything." The back door rattled, then burst open. 2 figures entered, flashlight beams sweeping the kitchen. Tom recognized William Parker's voice, unnaturally loud in the darkness. "Check the sitting room. The entrance has to be there somewhere." Tom's grip tightened on his phone, recording everything. The second intruder moved toward the sitting room while Parker rummaged through drawers. Headlights suddenly illuminated the front yard, followed by the distinctive red and blue lights of a police cruiser. The intruders froze, then bolted toward the back door. "Police! Don't move," an authoritative voice commanded from outside. 20 minutes later, Tom and Alex watched from the porch as William Parker and his accomplice, a locksmith from 2 towns over, were placed in police cars. "They just broke in?" Officer Reynolds asked, taking Tom's statement. "Yes, they were looking for the entrance to the basement. What's in the basement that's worth breaking and entering for?" Tom hesitated, then made a decision. "I'd like to show you if you have time. It's something the whole town should know about." The next morning, Tom called the people on Frank's list. By afternoon, a small team of historians and engineers from the State University arrived, their excitement palpable as Tom led them to the hidden basement. "This is incredible," breathed Dr. Lee, an engineering professor, examining the generator. "If this works the way these journals describe, Henry Harrington was decades ahead of his time. Can it be restored?" Tom asked. "With the right team and funding, absolutely," Dr. Lee replied. "This could have significant historical and scientific value." A plan began to form in Tom's mind. 2 weeks later, the Millfield Community Center hosted an unusual event. "The Harrington Legacy, Millfield's Hidden History" read the banner across the entrance. Inside, carefully selected items from Henry's workshop were displayed alongside enlarged pages from his journals. In the center stood a small working model of the atmospheric electricity generator, reconstructed by Dr. Lee's team. The whole town turned out, moving through the exhibition with expressions ranging from curiosity to amazement. Pete from the hardware store studied the tools with professional interest. The grocery cashier took selfies next to the generator model. Even Principal Wilson admitted he'd been wrong about those people in the old mansion. Tom stood near the entrance with Alex, watching the townspeople discover their community's forgotten history. "Your great-great-grandfather was a genius," Ms. Baker said, joining them. "The kids are already asking if we can take a field trip to see the workshop. Once the restoration is complete," Tom promised. "We're turning part of the house into a proper museum." With the university's help, Tom had established the Harrington Science Foundation. The house would be restored, the workshop preserved, and part of the grounds converted into a small research center focused on alternative energy, all funded by grants and licensing agreements for Henry's rediscovered technology. As for William Parker, he was facing charges for breaking and entering, attempted theft, and a host of business irregularities discovered during the investigation. The family's long campaign to possess the Harrington secrets had ended in disgrace. 6 months later, Tom stood on the mansion's newly repaired front porch, watching a group of schoolchildren file into what was now officially the Harrington House Museum. The roof no longer leaked. The windows gleamed, and the gardens were beginning to recover under Frank Cooper's expert care. Inside, Alex led his classmates on the tour he'd helped design, proudly explaining his great-great-great-grandfather's inventions. No longer the outsider, he'd become something of a local celebrity, the boy who helped rediscover Millfield's most famous resident. Tom smiled as he caught sight of Ms. Baker, Laura, as he now called her, directing another group through the exhibit hall that had once been the sitting room. Their friendship had deepened into something more over the months of restoration work. "Quite a change from when you first arrived," Frank commented, joining Tom on the porch. "Hard to believe this is the same town that mocked you for inheriting an old mansion." "People fear what they don't understand," Tom replied. "Once they knew the truth about Henry and what he created, everything changed." "Not everything," Frank said, nodding toward the end of the driveway where a delivery truck was pulling up. "Some things you earned all on your own." The driver unloaded a package and handed Tom a clipboard to sign. Inside the box was Tom's new prosthetic leg, custom designed by the university's biomedical engineering department, a thank you for his contribution to their energy research program. That evening, after the last visitors had left, Tom and Alex sat on the porch swing, watching fireflies rise from the garden. In the distance, the lights of Millfield twinkled, no longer seeming cold or unwelcoming. "Do you think Henry knew someone would find his workshop someday?" Alex asked, leaning against Tom's shoulder. "I think he hoped his family would," Tom replied. "He just had to wait for the right people to come along." "I'm glad it was us," Alex said, yawning. Tom smiled, looking out at the town that had become their home. "Me too, buddy. Me too." Inside the house, powered by a modern version of Henry's atmospheric generator, the lights glowed steadily, illuminating not just rooms, but the legacy of a man whose time had finally come, rescued from obscurity by a wounded soldier and a lonely boy who had found their place in the world by honoring the past and looking toward the future.